Giva Cordia, welcome everybody. Eimear Burke here. Welcome to another Fireside Chat. This is Fireside Chat 124. And as I usually do, particularly at this time, it's so apt, I again will say a prayer for peace. Gamara Shiokon ar fud na crinne, Gamara Shiokon in our Jaili agus in our Jirha, Ganari Lin ar Kitagarmaka, Ganwich Buikus Jiv, Jeha Quiftica, is Spirit Quiftica. May peace prevail on earth. May peace prevail in our homes and in our countries. May our missions be accomplished. We thank you, guardian spirits and guardian deities, for peace. As the fever of day calms towards twilight, may all that is strange in us come to ease. We pray for all who suffered violence today. May an unexpected serenity surprise them. For those who risk their lives each day for peace, may their hearts glimpse providence at the heart of history. That those who make riches from violence and war might hear in their dreams the cries of the lost. That we might see through our fear of each other a new vision to heal our fatal attraction to aggression. That those who enjoy the privilege of peace might not forget their tormented brothers and sisters. That the wolf might lie down with the lamb, that our swords be beaten into plowshares, and no hurt or harm be done anywhere along the Holy Mountain, with thanks to John O'Donoghue. So you're all welcome. Welcome to another chat. Let me see where you're all from. Ferdy, finally autumnal London. I think there's snow in Wyoming, Ohio, the Netherlands, Norfolk Island, Australia, Belgium. Where else? Crete, lovely. New Orleans. Oh, finally, we have some cool weather. Lovely. Well, it's dropped. It was lovely yesterday, and then suddenly it's cold today. And I believe there was frost on the windscreens this morning. Where else? We have Madrid. Lovely, sunny, but the rains are coming tomorrow. West Cornwall. Liz Hills in Wyoming says the Cailleach has returned for a visit. Well, she's welcome because it's her time now, isn't it? And welcome from Wales. Where else are we? Just lovely to see you all. Great. New York, Ulster, Liverpool, Ardnamurchan, Scotland, Ohio, Neath Valley in Wales, lovely, Richmond, Virginia, Oregon, Idaho, Vermont, Normandy. Lots of berries for the birds. That's great. That's in Hertfordshire, Staffordshire, Crouch End, Southern California, Germany, Yorkshire, North, Finland. The Cailleach's welcome when she starts paying my electricity bill. That's from Pat and Northern Ireland. Sorry, Pat. UK, Newcastle, Australia. Anyway, you're all very, very welcome. And speaking of Northern Ireland, we go to Northern Ireland. Let me introduce to my guest this evening. It's Leslie Harvey. Leslie, you're very, very welcome.
Thank you, Eimear. That was a lovely prayer.
Thank you. So we've got other people from Netherlands, Newcastle, Minnesota, Slough, Wexford, West Sussex, Southern California, Phoenix. Oh no, somebody's saying hello to Phoenix. Sorry, that's not somebody from Phoenix, North Carolina. So tell us where you are, Leslie.
I'm in or close to a little town called Tandragee in County Armagh. We're just about a mile from the town, and we're very lucky that we have a rented homestead. We've got about 4 acres and a cottage that is reputed to be 300 years old. And all the accompanying damp and beetles and things that go with it. But we absolutely love it. We were very lucky to find it.
Oh, wonderful. So tell us about Tandragee.
Tandragee, it's a very Protestant little town. So we to be honest, we don't go into it very much. But what I did find when I moved here about 10 years ago, that my great-grandfather was in the police force and stationed in Tandragee, and
Okay.
he married a native of Tandragee, and then they moved to Belfast. But I didn't know that until we moved here, and I was doing some genealogy research.
Wonderful. So are you originally from Belfast then?
I was born in Belfast, yeah.
Oh, Belfast. Okay. So what's the landscape like around, in Armagh generally? And Pat Booker says Tato crisps are from Tandragee. Now she says the proper Northern Irish ones, not those dafty Southern ones. Yeah, there's a
That's right.
series to find
Yeah,
in Ireland about
yeah.
Tato crisps.
We've got Tato Castle just just down the road from us. Yeah, it's lovely. It's beautiful countryside. It's really yeah, it's nice, and we're not that far from Navan Fort, so we would
And
we would go
Maca,
there.
lovely.
We would go there sometimes. We've got a rath about 2 fields away from us.
Wow.
It's great. It's grazed. It's not open to the public or anything, but we've gone up there a couple of times just to visit. Yeah, and we have a very untidy garden. Lots
Lovely,
of
nice and
trees.
wild then.
Yeah, absolutely wild. Yeah, and as I say, we've got some retired horses that live on the 4 acres, and 4 pygmy goats and some dogs.
Do you milk the goats or do you keep them as
No, no,
pets?
they're pygmies. They're just little things. They're just pets. They're just great fun, very entertaining.
Do you like are they lawnmowers?
Not really. The one thing goats don't really like is grass. They eat just about anything else. So you do
Trees.
have to
I've
be
seen them
careful.
eat.
Yeah, you have to be careful, especially careful that they don't get into poisonous things, because they have a habit of dying.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah,
So you said we are who's we?
my daughter, my youngest
Ah,
daughter, she lives with me. Yeah, yeah.
okay, okay. And is she interested in Druidry as well?
She is. She hasn't taken the sort of step towards Druidry yet, but yeah, she's open to it.
Ah, okay. So do you? Okay. Anyway, just about your land. And Pat says her mum had a goat once, but it ate her knickers off the line, and she never had one again. I don't know whether you mean she never had a goat or she never had a knickers, Pat. I'm not too sure, but anyway.
Yeah, I can understand that.
We in Africa, I've seen on our in our I have a shack there, and are just watching, sitting on a veranda, watching goats just very quickly come in,
Yeah,
decimate trees. They just come up and they just eat them. It just fascinates me, and they can climb trees, so it's
yeah, yeah.
yeah. So, what brought you to Druidry, or how did you find it?
Ooh, that's a very long story.
Well, we have
Um,
time.
well, I suppose when I realised that the Church of Ireland wasn't really doing anything for me, um, I think it was around about the time of confirmation, around about the time when I was 12.
Mm-hmm.
And at that point, I questioned whether I wanted to go on and be confirmed. And my mother sent me to the minister, who told me that before he had been ordained, he had had a lot of doubts as well, but he was advised to just go ahead and get ordained and figure it out afterwards. So I should just go ahead and get confirmed and figure it out afterwards. And it didn't inspire me with confidence. Um, and I didn't like the idea that babies were born in sin and that all the rest of it. So, well, as soon as I could, I stopped attending church. But there was always something there. I always knew there was something there. And I
Mm-hmm.
think around about that time, I did look at Druidry, but at that time, we're going back quite a few years. It was more involved with Masonic. Anything that I could find out about it was was along those lines, which didn't appeal to me either.
Yeah.
So I went, I think what age I was. I'd been about in my late 20s, and I got involved in transcendental meditation, and I loved that. It's been a big help to me ever since. I got quite deep into that for a while, and then after that, I joined the Baha'i faith for a while. I spent a couple of years looking at Rosicrucian, AMORC, and then I had Philip's little Monday messages popping into my emails for probably about a year. And I really, I liked them. I looked forward to them, and thought that was nice. And then all of a sudden I saw the OBOD things. I wonder what that is. and clicked on that and thought, yeah, I like that. And that's that's where it went from. That would have been four years ago. So I signed up for the OBOD course. It has taken me, I think I'm into my 4th year, but I'm quite comfortable in it. I want to go on to the OVA. I really need a kick in the pants to to get that sorted. But yeah,
all in its own time. It takes its own journey.
Yeah.
Just because the teachings arrive, but over a course of a year, it's at your own pace.
I think I did the first year and then went back to the beginning again, and then I've been in and out of it. Spent a lot of time on elements. Really enjoyed that.
So some people, when they join the order, have left whatever it is, previous religious upbringing or influences or spiritual practice that they had. Some leave and go, it was terrible, I've done enough, and I've now found someplace. I've found a sanctuary, or it's like an oasis for them. And then there are others who have studied various things like you have, and they don't abandon those. They bring them with them and integrate them into their Druid practice. Have you done that? Any of the things that you've been, with your Rosicrucianism or your TM or your Baha'i faith even, are there any strands of those that you've woven into your practice as a Druid?
I mean, I think there are basic strands in them all, aren't they? And they're all leading to the same destination. It's just I find that the Druid encompasses all of them. I certainly would still use the transcendental meditation, although I don't do the flying anymore. that was a bit energetic.
Okay. What was the flying, or is that?
Oh, it's part of transcendental meditation is sort of a step up from basically sitting in a lotus position. That it's not really levitation. It's called levitation, but when you get down to it, it's not. You just sort of wait for inspiration, and then in a cross-legged position you hop.
Yes.
And it would be quite difficult to do if you didn't have the inspiration, if you like. So there is some, I do think there is some spiritual aspect to it. But
Pat wants to know, is that the same as yogic flying?
I don't know what yoga flying. Yeah, I think that's probably what they mean by yoga flying. Yeah.
Okay. John said he spent 25 years in the Theravada Buddhist tradition in a monastic context, but the wonder of Druidry is that it helped me join up the dots, and that's really interesting.
Yeah. I had friends that were Druids. I looked at that as well, but yeah, I read quite a bit about it. So yeah.
Okay. So What would you say from the other things that are key to you that you've brought with you now that stands to you?
Um,
Like the Baha'i faith, for example. Is there
the
anything
Baha'i
from there that would?
I loved the Baha'i faith. I really
Mm,
did. And I really only left it because um, they had a couple of precepts that didn't sit comfortably with me. Um, they were very anti-gay.
okay.
Um, the, they, they didn't approve of drinking. But before I joined the Baha'i faith, I took 6 months. I wasn't a big drinker, but I was a social drinker. I took 6 months seeing if I could do it, and I managed it. And I still hold to that. I would drink very little now. Um, there's that, and also they're in the higher echelons of the Baha'i faith. They don't have women, and that concerned me a little bit as well. I wasn't comfortable with that. So yeah, that other than that, it's
Yeah.
the people are lovely. There's they not deny politics. That's not quite the right word. Um, they don't involve themselves in politics. So that's but they have their own type of politics, and their meetings are uh, if they were trying to come to a decision and one person in the group didn't agree, they could go back to the beginning and discuss the whole thing round and
Wow.
look at that person's point of view and bring it in. So it's yeah, I do really like that. And if it hadn't been for the couple of things that just didn't sit comfortably with me, I'd probably have stayed with it.
It's really interesting, that process of trying to find a consensus, like a true consensus, and that
Yeah,
willingness to go back again to the beginning. Now that can be
yeah,
wearing. I hope it was just about serious things
yeah,
rather about nitpicking. But it can be really, really a wonderful way and a gift to be in a group or a community. And I think it takes great compassion and great heart
yeah,
and grace
yeah,
to be
yeah,
willing to go back again and say, okay, let's have another look, have another look. And I suppose that's what respect is to take a second look.
yeah,
Respectare. I think it's a wonderful gift to be able to do that. Yeah.
indeed.
And do you practice that in your own life now?
I think it would have carried through a little bit. Yeah, yeah. It's all learning. It all gets absorbed.
So do you have a daily practice as a druid?
I Yes, I do. As often as I can, I would greet the quarters and have a short meditation in the
Mm-hmm.
mornings first thing. And um, I have my back garden says it's very overgrown at the moment, but I have a little mini grove just for myself.
Beautiful.
Um, I got a slice of and there was a big birch tree fell down across the road from us, and it
Mm-hmm.
crashed into our gates. And luckily, it didn't crash into the house. It had been about a meter the other way. It would have damaged it. Um, but when they were cutting it up, we got a slice off it, and I use it as a little altar table. So
Beautiful.
uh, yeah, and I have the quarters marked, and yeah, and there's lots of birds, and it's
Beautiful.
very
Beautiful.
pleasant. Yeah, yeah.
You said when you were spending a lot of time with the elements. Tell me a little bit about that for you and its importance or its value for you.
Yeah, it was just I suppose this is another part of the journey. My children went to the Rudolf Steiner School,
Mm-hmm.
and when they were very little, even just in kindergarten, they were learning about gnomes and sylphs and various different, the four different elements. Um, and I loved that. I never really thought very much about it, but with the bardic course and the elements, it just came home to me just how much how much part of us the elements are, and how much we depend on them, and that just meant the more I went into it, and still am going into it, that every time something happens, I say, oh my goodness, yeah, we couldn't live without that, it's yeah, and I do like the Steiner way of looking at it too, where they bring the elements to life, and the children learn about the spirits in the plants and in the air and things like that.
That's
So
beautiful. It's beautiful.
yeah.
Philosophical Phoenix wants to know any particular trees in your grove. It sounds lovely, she says.
Yeah.
What trees do you have?
Oh, trees. Well, there's a big poplar tree that's just on the edge of it, and I love that. It changes so much with the seasons, and it's sort of got very familiar. There's the usual ash saplings. There's quite a lot of ash saplings, and I planted when the birch came down across the road. I planted 3 what I thought were little birch trees. I bought them as birch trees, but now they've sort of grown up a little bit. It turns out they're hazel trees. But
Ah,
that's fine.
yeah.
And we've got a hedge down at the bottom, which is hops.
Oh,
It's made
lovely.
up of hops. So every summer we get a hop hedge.
Okay.
Yeah, and we've got a little pond then at the other end.
What have you in the pond? Do you fish?
No.
Frogs?
No. And I think there are a few frogs. It doesn't seem to populate very much for some reason. I think the water in it is it's runoff water, and I don't think it's
Okay.
conducive to livestock. But yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I planted or last year we had this old sand tray that the children had. And we left it out one winter and it filled up with rainwater, and in the spring there was frog spawn, and the kids were just delighted. Anyway,
Yeah.
I decided last year I need a little pond, but I even, they say just get a bucket, have water in it,
Yeah.
put some water plants and stones, just so the little critters can get in and out.
Yeah.
So I found this again, and I thought, well, maybe if it supported frogs in the past, maybe it'll do it again. So I've put it out in the garden, and I don't know, because I get frogs closer to the house because I have a tap and I have an automatic watering system. So there's always little bits of water and I can hear frogs. So it's just fascinating.
Yeah.
How,
Yeah.
and
I've actually had frogs in the dog's water dish and had to rescue them out of the dog's water dish. So there must be frogs somewhere. I just don't see them very much.
Yeah. But it's lovely to be able to have the wildness in your place, to be able to sustain them. I mean, it always gives me hope, because we know like the world frog population has been dropping, and it's really lovely to think that we can in our own space sustain a few. It is just beautiful. So you are you've dogs, I take it.
We have, yes, we've four dogs.
Oh my God. Okay, how many have you?
With 4. Yeah.
I mean, sorry, what kind of dogs?
2 whippets, a lurcher, and a very elderly collie retriever cross.
Oh, big dogs. And you're also a knitter of dog coats.
Yes.
So I know you have one there to show, and it's what got you into that?
Well, whippets don't have very thick coats, and when the winter comes, they need to be kept warm. So I started knitting dog coats, and then it got sort of that I enjoyed knitting dog coats, and some people wanted them. So
so that one, can you show us?
It's a pastime. Oh, how am I going to do that?
It looks like a small one. Will that actually fit a whippet?
No.
That's like
this
a very small.
Yeah. I can't get used to this sort of going the opposite direction.
Yeah, if you move your right hand, if it's whatever the hand is, there it is. Now, that looks like
Some,
a really luxurious coat, and I'm thinking the practical person is how can you have a white coat for a dog? How will they keep it?
well, it's more for probably a toy dog, something to keep it warm in the
Beautiful.
house.
It's beautiful. Gabriella wants to know: do you knit coats for cats?
Well, I could do if I had to.
I'm just thinking, it's easier to put a coat on a dog than on a cat, I would imagine.
I would be concerned about cats getting their claws caught.
Yeah, yeah,
Concerned
yeah.
about dogs getting their claws caught too. So we recommend that they're only worn under supervision. But cats, no, I don't think that would be a good idea.
Sandy, who's in Tintagel, says your garden sounds wonderful and very elemental. Frogs are so noisy, especially during the mating season. She said this year it sounded like a compressor running all night. Well, that means they were having a lot of fun, and hopefully they made lots of babies. So we will correct the downward trend of the frog population. That sounds wonderful. Animi says my cats would never keep a coat on. And
No.
Tropical Phoenix says my cats would be outraged. Yes. So,
Yeah.
and I know you have an interesting email address. So you have an interest in horses.
Yes. Yes.
So tell us about this.
Oh, that goes back. My grandfather was in the cavalry. He was survived the Somme in the cavalry,
Okay.
and it's one of my first memories of. He used to put me to bed at night when I was little. We lived with them, and he would tell me stories about his battles and his big white charger, and he just imbued me with horses, I think. And I remember the first incident I remember with the horse was he was holding me to stroke a pony, and the pony bit me.
Ooh, okay.
But then he encouraged me to go riding. I was never a competitive rider, but I just it was just the being with horses more than anything else. So I went on and went to a riding school in England and trained, did all the basics. And first jobs were grooming. I groomed show jumpers, I groomed international show jumpers in Belgium.
Mm.
Did polo ponies, worked at Windsor Palace with the polo ponies, not Prince Philip's, but the Argentinian team. Ran a trekking centre in Donegal from Dunfanaghy.
Oh, okay.
was one of the pony women, as they called us. And then I went into teaching. Enjoyed teaching, but I enjoy teaching individuals rather than big classes where it was all to be all money. I more enjoyed helping people to understand horses and to look after them. And then I was running a pony club, and there was one little girl, and I just remember her coming, and she was so nervous, and how are we ever going to get this child into ponies? And then I saw her about a year later running up the field, swinging a head collar, going to catch a pony, and I thought, there's a lot more to this than just getting on a horse's back and riding. So just about that time, there was some training. It was about 10 years ago. There was training coming in, equine assisted learning. So I was lucky enough to be able to go on some of that training, and for the last few years before I retired, that was what I did. Worked with different people, but quite a lot with children with autism.
Okay.
Because we got a lot of support. There was a family with autism, with a child with autism, that gave us a lot of support there. So that was really enjoyable. I really loved that. So
And
that's
you go on.
my health sort of broke down a little bit, and well, I was getting on a bit too. That was time to retire. So. But we still have the ponies that we work with.
So what do you do now with your ponies in terms of engaging with them?
Feed them, and spend money on them. But yeah, no, we just go out and talk to them.
And I rode a pony as a child. My grandfather gave me one. You know, I didn't even have a reins. There was I had a bridle, but there was a rope for the reins, and it was very in the back garden. And I remember for my 9th birthday getting a saddle and a bridle. And anyway, the pony died when I was 11. But and I was never interested in competitive riding. It was just to be there. And this pony we had was so laid back and so quiet. I mean, he had children running around in between his legs. And I remember my sister, she was just crawling in around. And this, if I ever fell off, he'd stop. He never ran off. He just stopped as soon as I fell. Just amazing. And now, well, I rode a horse last year for the first time in 31 years. I was sore.
Really?
But I've had, you know, having, and I always thought, okay, my relationship with horses is to ride them. And now it's about engaging, just communicating with them. And I've had some healing experiences with horses that in the last 2 years, absolutely profound. So
they reckon the range of a horse's heart, that the energy reaches out about 6 times more than the human, and that's how we engage, because the energy of the heart connects. Wow. So yeah, I've always considered them to be spiritual creatures.
Mm-hmm. Do you have any special story about something like that? You know, give an example of that.
Yeah, I could tell you the story of what there was a group of young lads, sort of 12, 13-year-old boys that came up as a group for the equine assisted learning. I think they came up for 6 sessions, and one little boy engaged particularly with one pony and got on very well with it. And he was a lovely child, but well, there was one day he came up and it was winter, and he didn't have a coat. You know, so he was standing shivering, and we had to loan him a coat. He was neglected, I think would be the word. But in the end, after the course stopped, and we engaged with the carers that were bringing them up, and we always asked, you know, was there anything in particular that the lads said, and he said that he loved working with the pony, that the pony listened to him, and it was the first time he had ever had that experience. So that was quite profound for me.
Wow.
But yeah, we've had lots of little things like that, but that's the one that comes to mind.
Oh, that's just so beautiful. Absolutely. Wow. So when has Druidry supported you?
I think in general it has made me a lot calmer, a lot more accepting.
Mm-hmm.
I'd have been quite a reactive person, can we put it like that. I do find myself, although I love the Druidry to begin with, and I love the teaching and all the rest of it, I find at the moment I find myself deepening, if you know what I mean. There's just, I think I'm almost at a point where I can come out as a druid, you know, rather than just saying, oh, I belong to an organization, a
You mean
druid
come out of the
organization.
you mean come out of
But
the closet and actually own it?
yeah, I can openly say, I feel that I can openly say now that yeah, I feel that I'm a druid. So
Well, we're
yeah,
lucky in Ireland, certainly, that it's not dangerous to do that. You know,
yeah, yeah,
I find people are curious. If not,
yeah,
people are fascinated, and others are, oh yeah, I heard about those in school, or yeah, they're in the legends, aren't they? So it's like,
yeah,
for some, at worst, it's there in the background and in the history, but not as an evil force, but as something that's part of our past. And then
yeah,
for others, there's a growing curiosity about it, I think,
yeah, I think
and a
so.
growing
Well,
fascination.
yeah, yeah. And I was in hospital once, and you know the way they take all your details and they ask what religion are you, and I said pagan, thinking I was going to get some sort of a reaction, and the nurse said, "Oh, that's really interesting. I've heard about that. They worship nature, don't they?" And I, wow, you know, so that was lovely.
I know, it is lovely, that reaction. I know when my husband was, well, he died 8 years ago, but he had a number of hospital visits, and in one of the hospitals he went. So each time they're asking you religion, and he'd say I'm a druid, and then mostly it was, well, we'll put it under other because we don't have a category. But in one hospital, she said, "Oh, we don't have a category for that. I'm going to make one." I don't know if she ever did,
Brilliant.
but
Yeah,
I just thought, if you can do that, anyone can do that, because what you're doing is putting in another little bit. You can tweak
yeah,
whatever it is, your
yeah,
how to do it. And I thought how lovely that was, rather than just being in the other category, whatever that is, with the broad
yeah,
sweep. I thought
yeah,
beautiful.
yeah. But I mean, even in the census this year, there was, or the a couple of years ago when it was done. Um, I can't remember whether it just said other, but you could actually write in what you were as other, and uh, ev- everybody encouraged us to put down pagan rather than individual.
I know there was the
So,
pagan dash,
yeah,
that the
yeah,
pagan dash road, pagan dash, whatever it is, and that was for the UK, and I suppose for Northern Ireland, to
yeah,
document the actual numbers rather than
yeah, yeah,
diluting it. And of course, but you see, it's interesting because, not all members of our order regard themselves as pagan.
yeah, yeah,
They're Druids and Buddhists, whatever, and Druid or Christian and whatever it is. But it's lovely that there's an openness, and
yeah,
without that fear. You get occasionally a cleric will say, "Oh, you're all pagans because people aren't going to mass," and it's like, well, that's not what pagans are.
yeah,
Worshipping false gods or having no religion, and
yeah.
um, just to be able to tap into that spirituality. Um, what would you say has been your greatest achievement, or that which you're most proud of?
um, well, my kids, I guess. I suppose most people would say that. My eldest daughter died a couple of years ago.
I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah, it was pretty rough, but she has 3 children herself, and I now have 3, 4, 5, 6, coming 7 great grandchildren, and
Wow.
they are just, and they are just so lovely. And then my she was 17 years older than my next 2 children, so I've got 2 grandchildren from them who are just the same age as my. In fact, my youngest great granddaughter was born on the same day as my youngest granddaughter.
Wow.
I
Wow.
thought
Wow.
that was.
Wow.
I wish I'd had a bet on that.
So you all started having children very young, I take it.
No, I was in my 20s when my eldest girl was born. Um,
Okay.
I was a single parent in Belfast, which wasn't the easiest, but um, it was something that I stuck out.
What gave you because I imagine, given that you're a great grandmother and of a certain age, and I certainly know down south, when I was growing up, the treatment of single parents was very challenging, to say the least. What was it that helped you navigate that and gave you the guts and the courage to keep your child?
Well, I did come from the era where you were shipped off to a home.
Yeah.
I totally resisted that. I was going to go over to England to some friends and have the baby and have it adopted over there. But the baby decided that she was going to be born a week before I was going to go. She was born at 28 weeks and spent almost 6 months in hospital. I think the second smallest baby ever to have actually survived in the Royal Victoria. So when she came out of hospital, she was still supposed to be going to be adopted. She went to a foster home for 6 weeks pre-adoption, during which time I visited her quite frequently and was very emotional about it. At the end of 6 weeks, I was told that her health wasn't good enough to be adopted yet. The original foster parents were going on holiday, and I looked at my daughter and I thought, I am not going to pass her from pillar to post like an unwanted puppy. And at that point, I gathered all my resources and defied my mother and got a flat, shared a flat with another friend, and brought my baby home. Wow. Yeah, it wasn't easy. It wasn't easy, but
and were you working?
Circumstances. Sorry. Yeah.
How did you survive financially? How did you manage all that?
I was working. I was lucky to have very good childminders. Very sympathetic childminders, very supportive, and it was just it was 1970, so just about the time the Troubles were starting in Belfast. That didn't help things either. But yeah, when I read about the Magdalene laundries, that just totally breaks my heart. And to think that my daughter could have been, I could have spent the rest of my life looking for her as well. So, and I know we have people in the Druid community that have suffered through that, and I just would like to offer any support, all the support that I can. Yeah.
There's people saying, "Ma, you've been through so much, so young, brave lady. You're remarkable. Such a very, very brave decision. Well done. That's a massive achievement, filled with love. I so admire your courage and bravery. So sorry that you lost her. Your bond must be still strong." And I'd like just thinking, you have very strong ovaries to be able to stand up to society to do that.
I also had a wonderful social worker who was totally supportive and
Wow.
just waited for me to make the decision. And when I had made the decision to keep her, she said, "I always knew you would keep her."
Well, I went to a school and with nuns, and they were very broad-minded, but this was in the 70s, and they always said, look, if you do get pregnant, society does not support you as a single mother. They weren't done the morality bit. They were just saying society doesn't. And they were right. And to think that you had people or whatever protection you had, that you were able to access friends, social workers, people who could support you, that you could do that. Well done.
I was very lucky, and actually once I had brought her home, my mum relented, and she would have been quite supportive then as well. So yeah, I was very lucky.
And Philosophical says, I have so much respect for you, Leslie. I've been a single mum and my second was premature, so I know it's hard, but it wasn't nearly as challenging as your situation. Yeah, I mean, my heart goes out to anyone with, you think of how long your baby spent in hospital. That is just so worrying and everything else, and yet, and it's interesting your determination to get through that, manage it, and her determination to survive.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yep.
It's
Yeah.
you know, did she live? Did she ever see her grandchildren?
Oh yes. Yes. Um, she did. Yeah.
It's beautiful, beautiful. Yeah.
Have some lovely photographs of her with the babies. Yeah.
Oh, that's lovely. Liz says everything that Ireland's gone through in the past several decades gives me hope for what the US is going through right now. Let's hope. Yeah. So it takes a lot of courage, but it's a testament to you. That is some achievement and something you should be so proud of. So when you say you offer support, what kind of support do you offer single parents?
No, no,
Or
not formally. I'm just saying that um, I stand with them.
yeah, yeah. And of course, in the recent years down here, down south, we've had so much of with the homes, the mother and baby homes, and
Yeah, yeah,
um, lots of pain and denial, and still not getting it about. I mean, we think of only recently that adopted children actually get access to their actual birth cert. I
yeah,
remember when I heard that first, I said that can't be true. Your
yeah.
birth cert is a legal document. Of course, everybody's entitled to it. And I said no. Uh, anyway, so you're also any regrets, by the way?
No, no.
That's wonderful. What's the most reckless thing you've done?
The most reckless thing I've done. Where would I start? Um,
Oh, at the beginning, and that'll be great.
no, not really. Well, I suppose probably going off to riding school and going to Belgium and leaving home and all that was a bit horrendous, a bit reckless to begin with. But I'm I'm an Aries, so I'm open to change. I'm open to
Mhm.
challenge, and I'm not sure that what I would class as reckless.
Well, you see, what's one person's reckless is someone else's normal thing, and
Yeah, yeah.
it strikes me that you're very adventurous, curious about the unknown, and ready to walk
Curious. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
walk new paths. That
yeah.
not
I would always
afraid.
I'd have been the black sheep. I was always never really towed the line.
Oh, it's good. Gabriella says you're awfully calm for an Aries. Well, it's fiery. Aries is fire, isn't it?
Yeah.
Nikki says, I wish you
Yeah.
much love and light for all that you are and all that you cast into our universe.
Oh,
Which
thank
is
you so
really
much.
nice. Yeah, yeah. That's lovely. Um, you mentioned something when we were talking earlier, NPE.
Yes, not parent expected. I discovered in three years ago
Ah,
that I got a text from a lady in America,
mm-hmm.
and the way you sort of think, who is this person? I'd never heard of her. And when she got sorted out that she was legit, she was a very nice lady, and it turned out that she was researching her grandfather's will. Her grandmother had died. Grandfather died in 1984. Her grandmother had just died, and this family trust had come to light. And she and her mother were named on the family trust, and so was I. So it turned out that I had heard of this person. He'd been an old boyfriend of my mother's during the war. And she had talked about him quite openly, and it turned out that he was my father. So that was, I think anybody that finds that out, it is basically ground shaking. You find out that half of you is not who you thought they were. And it took a long time. I think that was sort of the start of my health deteriorated a little bit. I was literally, it took my breath away. I got a lung infection, a lung allergy. So that was when I more or less retired from teaching the horses. But it's been a long journey of exploration. I got into genealogy and discovered where the links were, and I also discovered that I had been named after his mother, which was a shock in quite a nice way, but I've very much come to terms with it. Yeah, I don't blame my mother or anything. I think the worst part of it is thinking back to all those people, all those relatives. Did they know? Did they know that I wasn't really who I thought I was? Did
your mother marry? Was your mother married
Sorry?
to somebody? Was your mother married to the man you thought was your father?
Yeah.
Did he know?
I think he probably did. He wasn't the warmest father in the world, and we did have a couple of major rows that we were never close. Let's put it like that. So yeah, I think he probably did.
Wow. And somebody asked, it's NPE, not parent expected, is what the acronym for. Gabriella says he must have loved you and thought of you often. This is your real father.
My real father, yeah.
Your birth father.
My birth father. That was, I had actually spoken to him on the phone once, and that must have been when he found my address, and because he put my address on the family trust thing. He'd written to me a couple of times.
And where were those? You didn't receive those letters, no?
I did. Yes, I did receive them, but it was just as a family friend. He'd been billeted with my grandparents during the war, so that was obviously where my mother had met him, and she obviously had a lot of respect for him. That she told me about him, even though it wasn't in the context that that perhaps she should have done. But it's having learned about it, they say that about 1 in 10 of us, if we go into genealogy, about 1 in 10 of us will find that our ancestry isn't exactly what we think it is. And I think probably in Ireland, where there was such a history of, child being brought up by the grandparents or by an aunt, sometimes not even realizing that, who their real parents were. So the genealogy thing isn't so big in Ireland as it is in America, for example. But I think there's going to be a lot coming. A lot of people in the same position, and it's comparable to finding out as an adult that you've been adopted. Yeah, it's comparable to that, but it really is world shaking. And I have that.
Absolutely. Nikki says these kind of secrets cut like a double-edged sword, yet your soul has been beautifully carved as a result of it.
That's
that is something else. I know there are people who do. I know people who've been adopted through like 23andMe have found, because of that pool, have found relatives and and in many ways, well, obviously the person who's adopted knows that they're adopted, or
Yeah,
um, and then the other family can discover it. And I think we're living in an era now where, while it's a shock, it's not a scandal.
yeah, yeah,
You know, in the past, people would have done everything they could to keep that hidden, where
yeah,
now it's uh, people are far more open to it, that to discover a sibling.
yeah,
Um, and you know, it's really interesting when people talk about lineages and bloodlines and everything else. They're fairly shaky, aren't they? Like
yeah,
if you're saying 1 in 10,
yeah. At least. Yeah,
at least 1 in 10,
yeah,
that looking for bloodlines is actually quite dubious. It's not a reliable
mm, yeah.
indicator.
And I think that's probably where the black sheep came with me too, because my my parents were very straight down the line, church going, did everything right, no scandal.
Well, your
And
mother was, there was a wildness in her
there was something in her, yeah.
that came out maybe
But
for a night or maybe for more, or whatever.
yeah,
Uh,
but
that, uh, wow.
yeah, but this was something that struck me too. That when I came out as a single parent, her condemnation of me at that point, and then finding out that actually my
She had
dad
done the
wasn't
same.
my dad. It was a bit,
That's
um,
painful.
yeah, yeah,
That's a strange dynamic. I have a friend whose grandmother got pregnant before she got married, whose mother got pregnant before she got married, and she was a single mom, and each of them judged her. You kind of go,
yeah,
but you've done it. I
yeah,
mean, it's one thing to say, "Oh my God, you poor old thing. I don't want you to be on your own. I don't want you to suffer like I did." But no, this was
yeah,
condemnation.
yeah,
Uh, no, it's quite sad when we, and then it's interesting. I remember friends of the family, their daughter got pregnant, and oh, there was uproar about it. And then there was again, will they give the baby up for adoption or not? And it all depended on the man, whether he could get a job, and he did eventually. So they kept their baby. And
yeah.
as soon as then the baby comes into the house with the grandparents, it's like, well,
Oh,
how can you, just lovely that softening up
yeah,
of it's a child. And I mean, if we're all for respecting human life, we have to respect the actual our grandchildren.
yeah,
Um,
yeah. But I mean, I don't think it counts now. When one of my granddaughters, the one with four little girls, just got married there a few months ago. My I have a daughter that lives in Killarney. She has two little girls, and they got married a year ago. It just seems it's a different way of life now than it was.
oh yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah,
It's there's far more. I think freedom to be.
yeah.
Uh, yeah. So, any concerns you have about the modern world?
Cool. Uh, where would you start with things going the way they are at the moment? It's just very, very difficult to understand how people can be the way they are to other people at the moment.
Hmm.
And you know, I look at the good there is, and I look at the drudgery and the love and the acceptance that there is there, and then I look at the other bits of the world that I think I think it'll sort itself out. I think I, 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 I- I'm quite interested in astrology. I
Hmm.
would be in contact with a couple of astrologers. I don't know, I don't know anything about it myself. I don't practice it, but listening to the forecast at the moment, we're in for a pretty rough ride for a little while. But in the end, it'll sort itself out, and I think the Earth will give itself a shake and get rid of all the bits that are unwanted. But I think it'll straighten itself out, but maybe not in my day.
Okay. My question was, you said in a wee while. It's like, what? How little is that while?
I'll say it'll take a few years to straighten itself out, but it will. It will. I'm confident that it will.
Gabriella wants to know, do you watch Pam Gregory?
Yeah. She's my hero.
Oh, really? So tell us about that.
Pam, she's an astrologer. She's English, very, very human, very easy to listen to. She'll give you the astrology sort of straight from the heart, but she's also a very gentle soul, and she actually recently has suggested that everybody on a Sunday evening at 7 o'clock for 15 minutes not meditates so much, meditates, but just thinks about love and light and good things rather than sad things.
I had, I think Poppy says it's nice to hear positive thoughts even through the darkness. I had a fireside guest some months ago, Paul Tracy, and he talked about heart math and this heart coherence. And he took us through a beautiful exercise. It was very, very simple, about focusing on love and taking it in, breathing it in and out of your heart. And he said, if 100,000 people did that at the same time, something would shift. I don't know why we're not doing that, or how you organize 100,000 people. But I thought, is it that simple?
Yeah, the transcendental meditation, they would say that as well, that the more people that are meditating at the same time, the more it will radiate out to the world. And in fact, during the Troubles, when the hunger strikers, I think it was when the second one was dying, there was a group of us that gathered together over the weekend, and we meditated together. And we expected Belfast to be in a complete uproar, and in fact, nothing happened. It was absolutely quiet. So we don't take credit for it, but
I've heard some
that we contributed.
That is beautiful. I know in the Lebanon many years ago, when when the war was going on, and the violence and the level of deaths and destruction going on in Beirut, a group of people went there for a week and meditated, and the firing and the shooting stopped, and then they went, but it came back up again. So Lisa says, I have relatives in Israel. Not only that, is that a heart-wrenching thing, but also the judgments of so many are unfathomable. I have friends who, Palestinian and Israeli, and neither side are happy, and people are really, really painful. Not everybody is pro revenge and all of that. I think my heart goes out to, in any war-torn area, it's just that this happened as a shock. Nobody saw it coming, and really, really painful. Like, I have one friend she's here, she's from Gaza, and her mother and brother are still there, and so it's
I don't pretend to understand what's going on out there. I just know human beings shouldn't be behaving like that.
I know. Well, when you've something to gain from being in conflict, you keep at it. And when both sides realize we are losing more than gaining by maintaining this conflict, and that happens with people in your life, your family, whatever it is, you realize, actually, we're worn out with this. We're getting nowhere. But unfortunately, the bigger force is that there seems to be so much money and so much to be gained from maintaining war, and people get manipulated, and that's the hard part. Sandy says I also watch Pam Gregory. She's pretty spot on with it, and I do the 50. She does the 15 minutes on a Sunday evening. Liz Hills recommends the astrology podcast. Philosophical says maybe we could do a mass meditation through the lunar cycle, the way we do full moon peace meditations. I know it's powerful when we all do it together. Poppy says heart math was great. Isn't everything genius and harmonious simple? Yeah, we just expect things to be complicated. But you know, that's a really interesting one, because the simplicity of sitting in stillness,
Yeah.
you know, and meditating on peace, that you know, starting with your own still center.
Yeah.
That is simple. If we could do that.
Yeah.
Gabriella says, I think people are used to struggling, but sitting in peace and focusing on love is an exercise in many traditions. There must be something there, yeah?
Yeah. Oh, it's the more we can outreach, the more hopefully the better it'll get.
That's true. And Liz, yeah, people will change when the pain of change is less than the pain of staying the same. Yeah. Absolutely. So we're coming to the end of our time. So what is my last two questions? What is your favorite season? And what is your favorite ceremony to mark the end of the year?
Imbolc. Absolutely. Bridget, I can't wait for it. I'm not a winter person at all.
Are you not? Okay.
No,
yeah.
No. I enjoy the Samhain ceremony, but no, I look forward to spring.
Oh, we get people here with gamblers here. I don't know what it's philosophical. I'm betting spring. Okay, you got that right for Imbolc. Gabriella said Samhain, and Luna says so. Well, you said you liked the Samhain ceremony. All right.
Yeah.
And Pat says Imbolc is great, signaling the end-ish. Yeah, I think that's very good. That's a good qualifier, Pat. It means we've survived. Nikki says, I'll always remain optimistic for each and every ripple of hope within our universe. Well, it's the last to come out of Pandora's box, you know. So it's important to keep us going, you know, hope for each other. But I think it all starts with our own still center, you know, deep within the still center of my being, may I find peace. That is so important. Yeah. So if there's any final question very quickly for Leslie before we close, you better type quickly. There's a little bit of a delay. So, or any comments before we end, it would be, now's your time. I suppose while we're waiting for something from our viewers, what are you grateful for?
Oh, grateful for life, grateful to have got to my great age with relative peace and harmony, grateful for my children. Yeah, grateful.
And I'm just curious, and I didn't ask you, and I should have, even though I said we're coming to the end. These relatives in the States, do you have a relationship with them now?
Yeah, believe it or not, the will business is ongoing. my father, my birth father, was actually a very rich man. So it would have been nice to have had a little bit more contact with him. But when his wife, so he died in 1984, and his wife died in 2017, and she left £9 million to charity. $9 million, not pounds.
Okay.
So there was a bit of a fight to try and get the little bit that he left to us, which wasn't anything, you know, remotely like that.
Was that to his wife's daughter and to you?
Yeah. His wife's daughter, granddaughter, and me. So while they're not actually, you know, they're not blood relatives. They're step relatives, if you like.
Well, if
no, he he married, his granddaughter was his wife's daughter, but not his.
Oh, a stepdaughter.
I was
Okay.
I was his only child. Yeah.
You were his only child.
Yeah.
Okay. Wow.
So yes, we
So,
do. We do. We're friendly online. Yeah. Yeah.
oh, that's lovely. So
It
I'm
is
just
nice. Yeah.
intrigued. This is so her mother didn't leave her anything in the will. She left the 9 million to charity. Okay.
I think
All right.
I think she left. I think she left her some as well. But the.
And now there's this other thing that you're named. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I hope it doesn't take too much from you, this sorting all of this out.
No,
And
it might pay off the credit card bill, but it's not going to be
and
any. It's not going to buy me a house or anything like that.
so I hope whatever it is that brings you some joy and some ease. And
The joy would just be that my father's wishes were honoured.
yeah. Pat says, a wee tribute to Tandragee, the Tandragee man idol, who many think is a representation of Noah. Okay, she's put it in the link there. So,
Okay.
and Tracy says, hope it was a worthy charity the 9 million went to.
Yeah, I think there was Meals on Wheels was one of them.
Oh, really? Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Ferdiet says, we do gratitude gifts at Spring Equinox, things we've crafted over the winter as a thank you that we have survived. And he says, you deserve much joy, material or otherwise. Thanks for telling your story. So,
Thank you so much.
and I thank you for telling your story. So I just allow you say goodnight to everybody.
Okay, thank you so much for listening to my ramblings. And good night.
Now I'm going to send you backstage, but don't go anywhere because we can look at the comments. So I'll see you in 2 secs. So thank you all again for joining me for this other fireside chat and for your lovely comments. And I know, as usual, I don't get to read all of them. So I wish you a good morning or a good afternoon, a good night, or if you're listening to or watching a recording of this chat. I won't be here next week, but I will be here in 2 weeks' time for the fireside chat. And in the meantime, be well as you head into now the changing weather. It seems to be a welcome cool for some and getting cold for others and snow, etc. But as we head into the dark time of the year, as we draw in, may we find some inner peace within that we can radiate out to the rest of the world at this really, really sad time. So I wish you all a slán until we meet again. Okay, bye-bye.